Our focus on Scripture this morning is our responsive reading. It's printed in the inside cover of your bulletin. It's taken from Revelation 12, verses 7 through 10. I invite you to read the bold print with me. And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. The great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, "Now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down." May the Lord add his blessing to the reading of his word.
I want to tell you that Mary Ann's a minute lady. Amen. Our message that was supposed to schedule had a family emergency and couldn't come. But Mary Ann has had a deep experience with Jesus and with the spirit of prophecy, and she's going to share with us a little bit of her life, and we're glad she was willing to be the Minuteman today. Amen.
Good morning. Yes, move it in the center. So Harry called me Tuesday evening, to ask me if I would be the pinch hitter. And I agreed, and I thought, okay, the bulletin information is due by Wednesday, so I gave him the information for a sermon that I had done recently. And then he called a day or two later and said, oh, by the way, if you are in our pulpit for the first time, we really want you to give your testimony and why you love Jesus. And so and also don't run over time. But I was told by someone else this morning, don't worry about that. So we'll see what happens. Okay. So for my experience, I grew up in the 1950s and the early 1960s, traversing the hills of southeastern Oklahoma, hunting, fishing, looking for rocks and fossils, and learning about nature. Ours was a godless home, no Bible, no prayer. My father came from a long line of decent, upright people of English-Irish extraction. My mother was a first-generation American from a family who had originated in the Carpathian Mountains in Central Europe. My mother had been raised in the Russian Orthodox culture, and although she did not follow that faith, it was that culture that permeated our home. My town was about 2,000 people. It's quite small, populated by half Catholic and half Protestant from 20 different ethnic groups. I was the first of 5 children. We were all 4 years apart. When I was 4, I woke up one August morning to find my grandma standing over me, telling me that my parents had gone to the hospital 15 miles away to get a baby. I wondered why didn't my parents just go do like our cows do, just go out in the pasture and find one. Didn't work that way. But more important, my grandma had a gift for me. You must understand that in the Russian Orthodox families, Grandma's home had a holy picture in every room, including the kitchen. So she had brought me a picture to put on my bedroom wall. It was a picture of a beautiful being with long brown hair and wearing a white and purple dress, surrounded by soft different colors. And I asked Grandma, "Why does that woman have a beard?" She told me, "That's not a woman, that's a man. His name is Jesus, and he is God, and he made the world, and he died for you." I was awestruck. Jesus died for me. Well, I knew something about somebody named Jesus because the men in my community would sometimes talk as they worked, and they would say expletives like Jesus Christ. They would proclaim that God was going to send someone to hell. I didn't understand, but I knew that God was pretty powerful. And now I understood that he made the world and he died for me. I could tell you a lot of things about my childhood, my cat and my dog and the clouds and the stars and the thunder, but there's just one more thing from my childhood. When I was 5, my Baptist neighbors asked my family to attend a revival meeting at their church, which they held once or twice a year. And so our family went one Tuesday night, and they sat us close to the front on the left side. The evangelist was well known. His name was Lee Garner. I don't have a clue what he said in the sermon, but at the end he had us stand and sing "Just As I Am" as a closing song while he talked to the people about giving their lives to God. After a while, when this went on and on and on, I thought maybe he was talking to me. And so I hid behind my daddy's leg so that preacher couldn't see me. But he kept talking. And a little bit later, I recognized that that was the Holy Spirit talking to me, calling me to a different life. When I was 9, I was given an accordion. My Slavic culture was permeated with accordions and polka music and beer drinking, and I was expected to learn that kind of music, and I did. But I had also started attending that Baptist church with my neighbors, and I loved the hymns that they sang. They had just got some new hymnals, and I asked how I could get one of those so I could learn to play those hymns on my accordion. And they gave me a hymnal, and I learned. Before the year was over, I played for the first time in public. I played the Old Rugged Cross at church before 200 people. I spent the next 8 years of my life playing hymns at home, after school, every day for at least a half hour and sometimes more. That music was so soothing to my soul as I followed the words in my mind and played the tunes. Another great solace was Sunday school. At age 12, that Sunday school teacher named Pearl Curry, age 50, was a great influence in my life. Previous teachers were not so good, but this one influenced me to start reading the Bible for myself. I read the Bible cover to cover. Didn't understand most of it, but I did understand that the seventh day was the Sabbath. I didn't know anybody who worshiped on Sabbath in my town except for one Jewish family. I thought when I grow up, I will leave my town and I will find a church that worships on Sabbath. I also thought it would be nice to find a Protestant church that has a private school system, because in my hometown, only the Catholics had a parochial school. And I thought it would be really nice for a church to have a lot of books that would help me to understand the Bible. So I did grow up. I moved to Texas, and Adventists found me when I was 20. They ate the strangest food. I think the first thing that they fed me was scallops or something like that. And I was thinking, oh, this is not pork, and it's not beef, it's not chicken, not game, not fish, but it tasted good. And they had a lot of books. They gave me Steps to Christ. When I read that, I gave it back to them. They said, no, you keep it. Oh, they gave me Desire of Ages, same thing. I read it. They said, no, you keep it. The third book they gave me was the book Education. When I read that, I read the first chapter. The first chapter is Ellen White's philosophy of education, which is the same thing as her philosophy of religion. I read a statement: in order to understand what is comprehended in the work of education, we need to consider both the nature of man and God's purpose in creating him. We need to consider also the change in man's condition through the coming in of the knowledge of sin and God's plan for still fulfilling his glorious purpose in the education of the human race. To me, that meant you don't have to be saved from the fires of hell, but rather God has a plan of redemption, of bringing us closer to him. I knew when I read that chapter that I had found what I was looking for. I had found God's church. Now, I wasn't totally convinced I had found God's people, but I had found God's church. And so for the next 60 years, I have read the Spirit of Prophecy almost daily. I want to share with you something that I learned just recently from the Spirit of Prophecy, because as you read over and over and every day, you learn new stuff. And that's why I have this table out in front of me. It's about Ellen White's vision at Lovett's Grove. It was a Sunday afternoon, March 14, that would be like a week ago, 1858. So 168 years ago, last week. Ellen White was 30 years old. She had left her 3 sons, Henry, 10, Edson, 8, and little Willie, 3, at home, to accompany her husband, James, who was 36, to speak at a meeting house in northern Ohio, a place called Lovett's Grove, which no longer exists. It's down south of Toledo, near a place called Bowling Green. So during those meetings, a little boy had died in the community, and it was requested that James White conduct the funeral. During that funeral, it was customary for James and Ellen. James always had the 11 o'clock hour, and Ellen always had something to say in the afternoon. So same thing here. James conducted the basic sermon, and then Ellen White got up to console the congregation, and she went into vision. She was in vision for 2 hours. After the vision was over, they started home because their meeting was over. They were going to take a train ride to Jackson, Michigan, which is about 40 miles east of Battle Creek, where they were living. And on that train ride, Ellen shared with James that God wanted her to write out this vision and publish it in a book. Normally, during that period of time, whenever Ellen White had a vision, she would bring it to the congregation. They were not even a church at that point, but she would read it to them, and then they would vote whether it should be published or not. But this one, God had told her to publish. So they stopped in Jackson to spend the night with friends and to travel on. And that evening, Ellen White had a severe stroke. It was so bad that she thought she was going to die, and she was afraid she would never get to see her sons again. That she wouldn't make it. But the next morning, James and Ellen did board another train to Battle Creek. They arrived at their home on Wood Street, and Ellen was so weak that she could not go upstairs to the bedroom. There happened to be a little bedroom downstairs, and so they put her there. Now, today, if you go over there, it's just a closet. It's not even a bedroom. And so it is said that she would write one page, and then she would rest for 3 days, and then she would write another page. But soon her strength revived, and she was able to return to her upstairs bedroom. And by May, see, this is in March, by May, she was asked to tell the story of this great controversy vision to several hundred believers who had assembled in Battle Creek at their new meeting house on Cass Street. This was a Sunday morning. Ellen arrived shortly before 7 a.m., and she started telling the story, beginning with the fall of Lucifer. She spoke for 5 hours. Now, if you think a sermon, 30-minute sermon is bad, 5 hours. She ended somewhere in the middle of the life of Christ. So the meeting recessed at that point for the next 5 hours. They had a baptism 2 blocks south over in the Kalamazoo River, and then some other things took place. And at 5 o'clock that evening, Ellen resumed her account of the vision, and she talked until 10 o'clock. That's 10 hours, telling the great controversy vision to people who had never heard it before. Excuse me. You would think that the congregation was really tired, but no, they were ecstatic. They wanted to respond. And so James White was conducting the meeting, and for the next hour, he allowed people to stand up and give their testimonies. And then James dismissed the meeting at 11 o'clock, and then he wrote in the review about what took place. That summer, Ellen continued to write and to send her writings to the publishing house. I've got a model of the publishing house up here on my left, and it is very much like the original publishing house. That's where her manuscripts went to be published. They had a new press as well, a new printing press that was really fast. And so by September 9, a little 219-page book was published. It was called The Great Controversy Between Christ and His Angels and Satan and His Angels. Many times I had told the story about Ellen White's vision, but it had been a long time since I had read the book. And so I thought, well, I better read it and review what it says. I had forgotten, there's so much. In the little chapter on Gethsemane, she says that angels were hovering over the place of Gethsemane, but only one angel was commissioned to strengthen God in his agony, Jesus in his agony. So the angels, they were watching from heaven. They cast their crowns and their harps from them, she says, and with deepest interest, they watched Jesus. She says there was no joy in heaven. They wanted to surround the Son of God, but the commanding angels said, no, you can't do that, because it is prophesied he has to go through this experience. So, hold back. A little bit later, the crowd came to bind Jesus, and he replaced the servant's ear that Peter cut off. And when he did, he said, "Thinkest thou that I cannot pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels?" I checked. A legion at that time was 6,000. And so 12 legions would be 72,000 angels. Ellen says, "I saw that as these words were spoken, the countenances of the angels in heaven were animated. They wished then and there to surround their commander and disperse the angry crowd, but Jesus added, how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled? It must be thus." A few pages later, though, she writes, "Many companies of holy angels, with each a tall commanding angel at their head, were sent to witness the scene." Now, how many is in a company? A company, I found, is 100 up to 250 in a Roman company. So she's saying many companies of holy angels with a tall commanding angel at their head were sent. So here's these many, many companies of angels coming down to the scene of Jesus' experience there. And they had a purpose. They were supposed to record every act, every insult and cruelty imposed on the Son of God, and to register every pang of anguish which Jesus should suffer, because all of those men would see it happen again. So the angels, as they left heaven in sadness, they laid off their glittering crowns. They could not wear them while their commander was suffering and going to wear a crown of thorns. Satan and his angels, and by the way, he had legions of angels as well. Can you imagine how Jerusalem was crowded? There were people living there. There were many, many people coming there for one of the three great feasts of the Jews, people coming from all over the world, and then all of the evil angels and all of the good angels. It was a very, very crowded place. And so Satan and his angels were busy in the judgment halls trying to destroy humanity and to destroy sympathy. At Jesus' trial, it was difficult for the angels to endure the sight of mistreatment of Jesus. They wanted to just deliver him, but the commanding angels forbade them. And by the way, these angels, these companies of angels, they were not just flitting around. They were marshaled. They were obeying the tall commander at the leader of each of these 100 angels. So they were working in unity, but still they had sympathy for Jesus. And so there stood Jesus. They spit on the men spit on his face, blindfolded him, struck him, told him to prophesy, and Satan was raging because he saw that Jesus would not use his divine power to rescue himself. If Jesus had once used that divine power, then Satan would have won. So afterwards, Jesus was taken to the cross, and as he was crucified, she says, companies of angels were marshaled over the air above the place. They were moved with indignation, but they were not allowed to rescue Jesus from the cross. I never remembered anything like that. All of these angels over the cross, kind of hovering over, hundreds of angels. And I thought, well, now why didn't I remember reading that in Desire of Ages? So I had to go back to Desire of Ages. And I read many chapters there, but I found that there was a basic difference in the Desire of Ages, the focus is not on the angels. The focus is on Jesus and his character, and how when all these men, they were mistreating him horribly, but he was calm and serene and noble, and these men could see this in him, his character. But still, they had their characters, which was totally different. And so I realized, okay, when Ellen White wrote Desire of Ages, yes, Jesus was the desire of ages. Jesus was the person who had such a perfect character. So that was the main thought of comparing those two books. And I could go tell each character, Herod and Pilate and all of those guys. There's much more that we could learn from this. We can learn by reading these passages. We can learn about our own characters. Was I like Caiaphas? Was I like Pilate? Well, probably so, because Pilate was a coward, and I am too. And so we can see how Jesus related to each of those, how Jesus would relate to me in my sins. Okay. So there's so much more that can be told. Let's see, I can't see. There's books down there. You may want to look at them afterwards. The little tiny books near the building, that is where Ellen White originally published the Great Controversy Vision, and then in the 70s and in the 80s, and then finally the Red Books over here were her last copies of the Conflict series, and it grew. And there's different information in the different ones. Okay, I've got Jesus knocking at the door. That's Jesus knocking at our heart's door. And he does that daily. He wants us to invite him in every day. Every day. So I've told you a little bit about myself and a little bit about the spirit of prophecy, which I love so much. So now I want to invite you to come and go with me, and we will take a ride on an angel-powered chariot across the universe to a home that Jesus himself has prepared for each of us. We will have a full life. We will have the best of friends. We will have great food. We will have the best of adventures. We will have the best of employment. We will actually have jobs to do in heaven. We have this promise from my friend Jesus, who died for me. He says, "In my Father's house are many mansions. I will go to prepare a place for you, and I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also." Another place it says, "But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him." That's even true on this earth. That's why we have the spirit prophecy, so that we can read things. Can you imagine? We have such a great blessing in the spirit prophecy. We should be reading it faithfully. I really recommend that you read some of these books, as many books as you can. I think I'm not over time. Okay, so I think what we do next, we sing a song? We sing. Okay. Our closing hymn is